On the 2nd of February 2021, a game was released that had very little advertising. It hit Steam like no other title had in a long time. That game was Valheim. For those of you that live under a rock, Valheim takes place in, well, sort of Valhalla, a purgatory-inspired realm for Viking warriors, surviving, crafting and building to fight your way through multiple bosses to finally explore and conquer the land. So as always, let's start by looking into the past of the game and the company that worked its way up. Valheim was created by Iron Gate Studios, a 5-person team located in Sweden. Published by Coffee Stain, a fairly well-established company at that point, having released Satisfactory and Goat Simulator previously. Valheim was and is still being developed by Iron Gate. However, the development studio has grown somewhat over the last few months because of its great success. One of the co-founders, Richard Svensson, began working on Valheim in 2017 under the working title of Fade, which is Swedish for feud. He ended up leaving his job at Pieces Interactive in 2019 to work on the game full-time, convincing another co-founder, Henrik Tornvist, to come and join him later that year. The game was released into alpha in June of 2018, then officially releasing into early access on the 2nd of February 2021. There's been no finish date announced so far, but the game is still receiving updates and has a lot of promise on the roadmap in the future. So, how was the game received when it initially released? Well, as mentioned, there wasn't all that much promotion about this title, but it seemed to instantly blow up as soon as it came out. It was hit with massive positive reviews. IGN Nordic gave a rating of 9 out of 10, saying it had excellent art and music, highlighting a world that generates endless, exciting stories, while PC Gamer called Valheim a rare exception for early access. It feels refined and satisfying as it is right now. Then, a month into its release, it had sold 5 million copies and was one of the most played games on Steam. To put this into a bit of comparison, a massive AAA title, Battlefield 2042, had an average player count of 5,600 in the first 30 days. Valheim is at 28,000 concurrent players right now, a year after its initial release. It was nominated for the Best Debut Indie Game and Best Multiplayer Game at the Game Awards of 2021 and was named Game of the Year for 2021 by PC Gamer. So it was a success, right? Everything seemed to be going on board for these guys. But what really is the heart of this game? It's a procedurally generated survival PvE title, playing with yourself or with 9 other people. The goal is to explore the world either by land or sea, but each is filled with its own dangers. There are trolls, there are hobgoblins, there are caves and forests to giant sea creatures that patrol the oceans. But what makes this game any different to other fantasy? Well, the unique art style was a massive talking point, a mixture of 3D pixel art with some pastel colours. It wasn't everyone's cup of tea on release, but I think personally it looked beautiful. Not just really the graphical fidelity, but more importantly, the lighting. How well the lighting engine was put into this is next level. Shining off the oceans, or light rays moving between trees, or fire bouncing off the wet stone floor in your new castle gives it a stunning look. The building is also some of the best we've seen in recent titles, being able to use multiple building materials such as logs, wooden planks, stone, metal, glass, hay, and so much more, each with their own benefit or disadvantage in the construction. If your building is built to high enough levels without any support, then your structure is going to fall apart or become damaged until you fix the issue, giving a completely new dynamic to that survival aspect. While you can't starve within the game, you do however get benefits from eating, but unlike other games where it's just health, you're also going to gain things like increased weapon damage, stamina, or protection from certain abilities, although this feature does have a minor complaint from some players, as you'll have to eat a ton of food, and it kind of becomes a main core mechanic in the game in the later play sessions. Combat within Valheim was nothing more than really just hitting a creature on the head with a large log, but as you progress through, you pick up new features, for example learning to parry and staggering and stunning enemies, or using and finding new abilities such as tree people who are weak to fire, but they're also scared of it and will run away. Also, skeletons are weak to blunt weapons, so you have to sort of cater your armory to what boss you're going to face next. Speaking of bosses, each boss is incredibly unique and they look beautiful. From massive stag creatures to terrifying wood trolls that send roots shooting through the ground that you have to dodge. It is a completely different fighting experience to take out each one. I mean, for example, you can see in this video the elder that we were fighting early game. I mean, we didn't do it very well, as we probably should have dug under the ground making foxholes to try and kill it that way. But anyway, we got there in the end. But it felt like an incredibly unique boss fight that I hadn't felt in a while, and especially doing it with other friends, not just on your own or even with 3-4 other people, but being able to do it with 8-9 other people is a really unique experience, especially in this day and age. But this whole video is why Valheim destroyed the medieval genre, and that might sound like an outrageous exclamation to start with, but it did. I think it changed it forever. It took something that had been so well established in historical titles, but also in survival games, and it decided it wanted to go a different way. So what were some of these small features that I think kind of changed the way that I think many survival games and medieval/historical games will take to the future? Small details like cutting down trees, but having to angle your axe in the exact direction to hit. I mean, if you knock down a tree, it could hit another tree, and sometimes it would knock down that tree as well. But you could get killed by falling logs as well. The open world was completely procedural, and it just goes on and on forever. Being able to sail on longships with your friends is some of the most beautiful gameplay with this lighting engine as well. And what's more impressive is they didn't really advertise it. I mean, of course they did a little bit. They released a few trailers which gained a few thousand views, but nothing more than that. I didn't even hear about the release of the game until a few days later. There was no big advertising campaign. There was no one being paid to promote the title. Instead, it was just based on the content. Communities saw this game. The reaction to it was so positive, and they found it to be something so fresh that made other streamers play it, which saw bigger content creators see it, and they would play it, which would see other people look at their favorite content creators and say, I want to get on that. And it grew and grew, and a snowball effect that we've not really seen in recent years. And having said all this, I think that's one of the main reasons it's been so popular. And it has completely slapped the medieval genre in the face, because a team of developers, starting with 1 up to 5 people on its release, has managed to make one of the biggest games of the last few years. And it wasn't anything to do with advertising. It wasn't anything to do with false promises. It was to do with the core mechanic of a game that is still living up and holding up to this day. They wanted to create this passion project for a new, unique game, inspired by other things, but having a completely unique spin, not just by the looks, but the core mechanics as well. And it looks like, judging by their roadmaps, they wanted to take this long into the future. Valheim was a unique success story, one that we don't see all that much these days. A small indie game blowing up to a AAA level. Of course, the studio is still in its humble beginnings. There's a lot more that can come from the future, but in terms of player base, they have gained a core fan base that I think will stick there for a long time. Even after the hype has died down, there isn't 100,000 people playing at the moment. 30,000, 20,000 concurrent players is one of the most healthy games on Steam, especially a year later after its release. But that's just my opinion on how Valheim destroyed and completely reshaped the medieval genre. But let me know what you think. Do you think it deserves its success? And do you think it can take it into the future with more updates to stand the test of time like many games fail to do? But please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.